Welcome to Solidworks, Certified Solidworks Associate Prep, Module 2. This is about sketches, and this module is going to include sketching on a plane, part face, or a reference plane that we create, editing sketches, drawing all sketch entities, setting some relations, setting dimensions, and some advanced sketch functions. So you'll notice that in sample exam, what's given is a couple different views of the part. So these views are, side view, a trimetric view, and a front view. And there's lots of different dimensions on here and some global variables that are defined right here. So in the last module we've gone over how to get these views and how to set the global variables and how to set the material as well. So we're going to take a look at the blueprints of a part to create, and basically look at all these dimensions and look at these symbols and understand what they mean, and closely look at lines that are sketched and make sure that we know how to do all of these things. So for example, we're going to go around this part, and when we see features like an overall dimension like a 32, where would we click to create this dimension? This icon here means diameter. These icons here mean tangent, so these are relations that we'll set. And we have different types of dimensions that we're going to set, such as like a radius, or degrees, or distances. And for radius, we have a couple of different types of arcs that are created here to make these different radii. So when we have a center point of an arc that has a defined position, this means that we are going to create a center point arc. Whereas if we have a point that is not defined, it's sort of just floating in space, this is more likely a tangent arc. So we can see the tangent symbol here, so we create a tangent arc that would be this feature here. Okay, so now we're in SolidWorks, and we're where we left off from the last module. So we have started a sketch on the front plane, and for all these parts, it doesn't really matter which plane you start on. Any plane will do for the front, top, or right planes are fine. So we have these tabs up here, right? And we started a sketch from the sketch tab, and within the sketch tab we'll have all these sketch entities that we can create. So we have lines, circles, rectangles, arcs, ellipses, slots, polygons, and fillets, and points. We have some functions that we use with sketches, such as trimming entities, converting entities, offsetting existing lines or other sketch entities, mirroring, doing a linear pattern, or copying, moving, or rotating entities. So what we would initially do is have an idea of what our sketch looks like, and freehand sketch a bunch of lines and arcs and things that would create a closed loop. So for example, I'm going to start with a line, and I'm going to move it around. You can see that if I am horizontally related to this origin, I'll get this nice tie line that shows up, which enables me to have it sort of snap to that angle. If I hover over the origin, I get this little yellow symbol, and this is called a relation. And this small icon denotes that I would be making this point coincident with the origin, or at the same point as the origin. So if I click once at the origin and move to the left or at any angle, I can see that if I go horizontal, Then I also have a horizontal relation that is tied with this line, and if I click that, now I have these green boxes that show those relations. So it says that my line is horizontal and also coincident with the origin. I'm just going to click some more lines and go back to the origin. Okay, and if I want to get rid of this line sketch tool now, I can hit escape on the keyboard. So my line in black has a defined relation that it is horizontal, but it's not defined in distance. So I could click the end point and drag that. It will stay horizontal no matter if I put my mouse up and down, but the distance will change. If I then slide it over here, you'll see that there's also a vertical, that it makes this line vertical, but there's no green line here, so it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to stay vertical. That relation is not defined yet, so I could drag it back. However, I can click the line and add relations. Now I can add relations here, such as make this line vertical, or I can add some relations over on the left hand side as well. I can select multiple lines by holding down Shift between that or Control, and now I could add some more relations, like make these lines collinear, which is not really possible in this sketch. I could make them parallel, so if I click parallel, you'll see that they become parallel to each other. Now if I drag one, it will always stay parallel to the other. So if I have blue lines, this means that they are underdefined, which means I could click and drag an entity and it will change in dimensions. I can add some distances and some other relations. So by adding a distance, I sort of restrict the degrees of freedom of this sketch. And I can do a shortcut to do some sketching and some adding of relations by holding down the right mouse button and then moving my cursor a little bit. And now you'll see that if I drag my mouse to the left, I'm able to create a line. If I drag it up, I can start dimensioning things. So I can then dimension the distance of this line by clicking on the line and clicking off the line. And then you can set this example to 50 millimeters. Okay. If I click two adjacent lines, I can set the angle between them. And I could set the angle on the inside of here or on the outside of here. It depends on where I position my mouse. So if I want to make this a 60-degree angle, you'll see that more of the lines become black. Now the angle is fixed, so I can no longer drag those. However, the distances are not fixed. So the next thing I'm going to do is make this line horizontal. You'll notice now that it stays horizontal. I can also delete existing relations by clicking on the small box. You'll see it turns blue, and click delete to get rid of it. So now it's no longer horizontal. I can also set overall distances. So I don't have to click on the line, I could click on an endpoint as well. On that point and this point. And now you'll see that I could dimension the distance of this line, or I can dimension the vertical distance of the whole sketch. And that's what I'll do here. And I could also define an angle here. So you can see there's a lot of different ways to define a sketch, such that all the lines are fixed. You can also, put too many relations in, such that it's overdefined. So this is the minimum number of sort of dimensioning things that I need to make the sketch fully defined. And you'll see that in the bottom corner over here, fully defined. And all the lines will turn black at that point. So in an exam, you would definitely want all the lines to be fixed in position. Okay, so there are a couple more sketch entities that you could do. For example, you can create a line that's not going to be used in a three-dimensional feature. You can basically just use it for construction, which will make it a dotted line, and you can use that for positioning certain entities. You can dimension these construction lines, but they won't be used in any final three-dimensional features. Alright, let's create some arcs. So you'll notice that these are the arcs, and there's a couple different types. So there's a center point, a tangent, and a three-point arc. So I'll start with the tangent arc. If we started the end of an existing line as our start point, it will automatically give us a tangent relation at this point here. Let me see that green box. And then from that point, we can dimension the radius of this. Okay. There's a couple different types of rectangles. Most often I'd say we use a center rectangle, which is defined by its center point. And then we can drag it anywhere. Escape. And we can draw a circle. And basically we are defining the center point of the circle. If we drop down, we can see there's a perimeter circle, which is defined by 3 perimeter points. But most often we use this one that's defined by its midpoint. And we can get to the circle also by a shortcut by dragging to the right on our right click. Okay. So dimension the circle. So you see if we can hover over the end point of this arc, we make a coincident relation with that. Okay. And we can also make this box coincident with the circle as well. So I'm making these relations because I eventually want to make a closed loop so that I can make a three-dimensional feature. So a three-dimensional feature requires that I have some closed loop of entities. Now we're going to use the Trim Entities tool. And if I click this and click Trim to Closest, I can get rid of extra lines that are in addition to a closed loop. So everything that's outside of the closed loop, I can click on that to delete it. And you'll notice because the Trim to Closest is selected that if I click on the side of this circle, it won't get rid of the whole circle, just up to the next connecting point. Okay. So I have this closed loop defined. I need to set some more variables or relations. So if I want to make these two lines tangent, I can select them both and select tangent here. I can click between two lines to set a distance. Click between two lines to set an angle. Click between 2 points to set a distance, and then it depends on where I drag it to create that distance. Okay, and now my sketch is fully defined. Okay, and say I want to mirror these entities around some line. I can make a line that is currently solid into a construction line by clicking it, and then up here this construction geometry icon will change that from a solid line to a dotted line. And if I'm going to mirror any features, I need some kind of line to mirror those features around. So I'm going to mirror all of these features around this construction line, and that's going to give me one solid loop that connects at these 2 points. So if I click Mirror Entities, it's going to show me this blue selection box. Anytime over here, when I have a blue selection box, then I have to click on the entities that go into this box. So the entities I want to mirror are these lines here. Okay, and if I don't move my mouse after the last entity that I click, you'll notice I have a little mouse icon that shows up with the right mouse button denoting this little blue arrow. If I then click the right mouse button, it will move the selection box down to this mirror about, in which case I want to mirror those entities about this line, which I will left click to select. If I don't move my mouse after this click, I notice the right mouse button is a green check box, which will finish the operation. So that is a slightly faster way to complete that operation. If I go back and show you another way to do that, that is the same as clicking in this box.